Good afternoon, everyone. Now we will start our second session for the day. I am Sadhana, Professor Aipar Vardha. I feel honored and privileged to introduce Dr. Samiksha Saklani, ma'am, consultant, a leading expert in veterinary pharmacology and regulatory affairs. She has
Yes.
her master's in veterinary science in
हाँ
veterinary pharmacology and technology from the prestigious GB Pant University of Agriculture and Technology. Bringing a unique blend of industry and governmental experience, she transitioned from her role as a product executive at Sava Healthcare to her current position as a consultant for the CCSEA under Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairy. Her expertise is central to the ethical oversight of science in India, specifically regarding the registration, renewal, and regulation of IAEC protocols. Today, she will provide a deep dive into regulatory framework for animal experimentation in India, role and function of CCSEA. With this brief introduction, I request Dr. Samiksha Saklani ma'am to proceed with the session.
Thank you, ma'am, for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. First, I would like to begin by congratulating Institute of Pharmaceutical Education and Research for organizing National Conference on Ethical and Scientific Consideration in Animal Research. I hope this event proves useful to everyone present. So, first, let me share my screen. Just a second. Is it visible to everyone?
Yes, madam. It is visible.
Okay, sir. So today I'll be discussing about regulatory
Video.
framework for animal experimentation in India, the role and functions of CCSAM.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Could you please switch on your camera, please?
Okay, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay, sir. So
And,
I'll be
ma'am, the view is um, original view. Could you shift it to full screen view? Your presentation.
okay, sir. Just a second. Just a second, sir. Sir, is it visible? Hello?
No, madam.
No, just a second.
Please share your screen again, ma'am.
Okay, sir. Sir, is this visible now?
Yes. Is it visible now, madam?
Okay, it's visible now. Okay, so today I'll be discussing about regulatory framework for animal experimentation in India, the role and functions of CCSEA. So I'll begin by explaining the origin of animal experimentation in India. So in 1837, animal crossbreeding was first recorded in India when Princess Jamnagar presented a hybrid big cat to Queen Victoria. This is significant as it shows early human intervention in animal breeding, which is a foundation for experimental work with animals. So it's important to note that hybrid animals exist only in captivity and are the result of human intervention. Moving forward to colonial India, animal experimentation became more formalized then. In 1880s, sorry, in 1880s, the British introduced various chemical drugs to colonial India, which leads to the beginning of animal experimentation in India. During this time, a debate broke out between the British medical journal, the Lancet, and Indian medical practitioners over the use of chloroform as anesthetic. This debate highlighted the medical community's community concern over the safety and ethical implication of new drugs. To address this concern, the Hyderabad Chloroform Commission was established in 1880. A researcher named Louis Laurie experimented on 141 animals to study chloroform's effect. So here, formally the animal experimentation has started. In October, after 1 year, in October 1889, Lauder Brunton, he's a profound figure in medical researcher, initiated large-scale animal experimentation in second Hyderabad Chloroform Commission. So the experiment was begun on 23rd October and were conducted daily, continuously every day till 18th December. Approximately 2 months experiments was held. So in this intense 56 days period, approximately 500 animals were used, and along with the animal study experiment, clinical trials were also conducted on 54 humans to complement the finding and better understand chloroform effect in practice. So nearly at this time only, Indian Snake Venom Commission was established to investigate a critical question, that how long could a person bitten by a venomous snake be kept alive using artificial respiration? So this was a major public health concern at that time. So in 1893, Joseph Ferrer, he started experiments on snake venom in India, which laid the foundation for further research into venom toxicity and treatment. And in 1893, Leonard Rogers, he resumed and expanded Ferrer's work. Roger's work aimed to better understand the effect of venom. So the experiments was conducted on 200 dogs and which were either forcibly bitten by cobra in captivity or hypodermically injected this venom into the system of the dogs. So these experiments were useful in developing understanding of snake venom toxicity and role of artificial respiration. So uh, by this time, animals were used for experimentation, but there was no as such regulation to take care of the animal welfare. They were doing experimentations, but not such any regulation was formed. So as animal experimentation became more central to the medical research in India, several laboratories were established across the country, which played a key role in both infectious disease research and development of vaccines. So some of the important institutes are mentioned here, like Imperial Bacteriological Laboratory at Pune, which was established in 1890. Bacteriological Laboratory at Agra, which was established in 1892. Plague Research Laboratory at Bombay in 1896. Pasteur Institute of India at Kasauli, which was established in 1900. at Kunur 1907, at Shillong 1917, in Calcutta 1924. So Central Research Institute at Kasauli was established in 1905. So these industries became center for large-scale research involving animals. And with the establishment of these laboratories, the issue around ethics of laboratory animal research started to gain attention in India. Questions about animal welfare, human experimentation began to assume a critical importance, setting the stage for future regulation and ethical framework. By early 20th century, production of vaccine in India had become a large-scale production. For example, production of single sample vaccine in one Pasteur Institute required around 6,000 rabbits. So this enormous number of animal highlights how critical animal experimentation had become to modern research and public health in colonial regulation. So then animal experimentation was legitimized and legalized in colonial India. So these are the some institutes which were established before independence, which were producing vaccines and sera in large amount. So by this time in our discussion, it's important to understand where animal experimentation is conducted in India. So broadly, there are four sectors which rely on animal experimentation: pharma, medical, veterinary colleges, government institutes, research institutes, pharmaceutical industries, contract research organization, and biotech industries. So with the growth of animal experimentation in India and worldwide, the question of animal welfare became increasingly important. Every country that uses animal in research has developed guidelines to ensure humane care and use. These guidelines, cover several critical areas like housing, feeding, humane care, and main focus was given on environmental conditions. Okay, like there should be controlled light and temperature, humidity and ventilation should be controlled, noise level should be controlled, and access to standard nutritive diet, suitable for this species. So these guidelines basically cover all these aspects of animal welfare. Strict adherence to these guidelines is made mandatory through animal welfare laws. Now, these are legislations in animal welfare. There are some important laws and organization created to prevent cruelty to animals. We'll go one by one. In 1641, first legislation forbidding cruelty to animals passed in the court of Massachusetts. So this is considered one of the earliest legal protection for animals. In 1820, first anti-cruelty law was passed in England. In 1824, SPCA, that is Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, was established in England, and later in 1865 it was established in USA. In 1871, the British Association for Advancement of Science published guidelines for animal experimentation. 1883, the American Anti-Vivisection Society was founded, advocating against unnecessary experiments on animals. Then in United Kingdom, Cruelty to Animals Act 1876 was established, and it was the first major legislation on animal experimentation. So it regulates, it sanctioned animal experiments. That means only authorized experiments were allowed. They prescribed limits on pain to animals. That means it ensures that animals are not subjected to unnecessary pain. Then use of anesthetic, it talks about use of anesthetic, mandatory for those procedures which causes pain. Then registered of designed place means only authorized laboratories could conduct experiments and maintenance of record. So in these areas, the focus was mainly given. In USA, Animal Welfare Act was amended in 1928 through the Improved Standard for Laboratory Animals. And later in 1960, Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act came in India. It was established in India in 1960, which provide legal safeguard for animals, including those used in research. Now that we have discussed legislations, it's important to understand what animal welfare actually means in context of research. So animal welfare is commonly defined through 5 freedoms, which ensures that animals are treated humanely and ethically. So first is freedom from thirst and hunger. That means animals should have access to clean water and balanced diet suitable for their species. Second is freedom from discomfort. That means animals should be provided appropriate shelter and comfortable living environment. Freedom from pain, injury, and disease. That means animal must receive proper veterinary care and preventive health measures. Freedom to express normal behavior. Animal must be allowed to move naturally and engaged in species specific behaviors. Then freedom from fear and distress. Animals should be handled carefully and kept in physiologically safe environment to reduce fear and distress of animals. So understanding these animal welfare is essential before we move on to discuss the specific rules, guidelines, and regulatory bodies in India that enforces them. Now, Committee for Control and Supervision of Experiments on Animals. So in India, the animal experimentation is primarily managed by CCSEA. It was established under Section 15(1) of the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act 1960. CCSEA is a statutory committee. That means it has legal authority to regulate animal experimentation across the country. The main aim of CCSEA is to prevent infliction of unnecessary pain and suffering. CCSEA is central to maintain ethical standard in Indian laboratories. Currently, the committee has 19 members, where Joint Secretary, Animal Welfare Division is the chairperson of CCSEA, and Joint Commissioner Joint Commissioner, Department of Animal Husbandry and Dairying is the member secretary of CCSEA. Now, the duties and power of CCSEA are given in the PCA Act 1960. Using its statutory authority, CCSE has formulated Breeding of and Experimentation on Animals Rule 1998, which was amended in 2001 and 2006. So, according to these rules, all the establishment engaged in biomedical research, breeding, or trading of laboratory animals must be registered with CCSA. And at the time of registration, the Institutional Animal Ethics Committee should be formed to oversee the ethical conduct of experiments within the institute. Now, Animal India. Expensive and important for CSE entry institute
Hello. Hello. Dear participants, there is some technical issue from the guest speaker side. So we'll be resolving it and we'll come back to you.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Now you are audible.
Sir, I'm sorry, there was some connection problem. So I will present again.
Yes, yes. Please.
Is this visible to everyone?
Ma'am, your screen is not shared yet.
Just a second, sir. Hello.
Yeah, ma'am. It's okay now.
Hello. Sir,
It,
can you see my screen now?
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So where I don't know
Could you
where.
please go to previous slide, ma'am?
Just a second, sir. Shall I start from duties and powers of CCSA, sir?
Which was the previous slide, ma'am, before this? Yes, ma'am, from this slide only.
From this slide. Okay.
Yeah, duties and powers of CCSE.
Duties and powers, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, the duties and power of CCSEA are given in under PCA Act 1960. Using its statutory authority, CCSEA formulated breeding of and experimentation on animals Control and Supervision Rule 1998, which was amended in 2001 and 2006. According to these rules, all the establishment engaged in biomedical research, breeding or trading of laboratory animals must be registered with CCSEA. They are required to constitute institutional animal ethics committee to oversee the ethical conduct of experiments within the institute. So at the time of registration, the institutional animal ethics committee is constituted. So, as we have already discussed, that CCSA plays a critical role in regulating animal experimentation in India. Now, its functions are extensive and operationally important for ensuring ethical practice. So, some of the main functions of CCSA includes registration of establishment. All this institute engaged in breeding of animals or conducting experiments on animals must be registered with CCSA. Registration of the establishment is valid till 5 years only, and after 5 years, the institute, if they are continue conducting experiments or breeding of laboratory animals, they have to apply for renewal of registration. Then second is constitution, reconstitution, and revision of the IAEC. So, constitution at the time of registration, the institute propose names of the like IEC members, internal IEC members, and CCSA approves those personals based on the biodata and certain documents. So, we constitute IEC at the time of registration, and at the time of renewal, the IEC is reconstituted. And in between, if suppose the establishment wants to change the IEC member for any reason, so establishment will apply for revision of Institutional Animal Ethics Committee. Okay, then third function is CCSEA approves animal house facility for both small and large animals, ensuring proper condition for animal care. Then CCSEA, any experiment involving large animals required permission of CCSEA. So CCSEA gives permission for conducting experiments on large animals. CCSEA also inspect the animal house facility, or it assigns nominees to inspect the animal house facility at the time of registration or renewal, or in between if there is a need for inspection. CCSEA visit the facility, sees the condition. If the facility is functional or is following the guidelines of CCSEA, the committee is recommended for further registration or renewal. But if the nominee or if CCSEA reject the facility, then the registration is not considered. Now, beyond regulation, CCSEA also plays an important role in promoting awareness. Okay, awareness and education about laboratory animal welfare and ethics. So for this, CCSE organized conferences, seminars, and workshops for researchers and institutional staff. Nominee training is also done by CCSEA. We train the nominees to educate personnel on ethical practice and animal welfare. So because we, at the time of registration renewal, we assign nominees as a part of Institutional Animal Ethics Committee. 4 members are assigned by CCSEA. So so that's why we give training to them. Okay. Now, these program also promote the principle of 3 R's: replacement, reduction, and refinement, which is central to the animal ethics, ethical animal research. So this was all about the functions of CCSA. Now moving forward to breeding of and experimentation on animals, Control and Supervision Rules 1998. Some of the rules are mentioned below, like Rule 3. According to Rule 3, every establishment involved in breeding or trading of laboratory animal shall be registered with CCSEA. According to Rule 4A, establishments which are performing experiments on animals need to be registered. Okay, Rule 3 says about those establishments should be registered which are breeding laboratory animals or trading laboratory animals. Whereas Rule 4A says the establishment which are performing experiments on animal, we have to, CCSEA has to register them. Now, Rule 6 talks about maintenance of register. CCSE registered establishments, they require to maintain a day-to-day register of animals used for experimentation. It's a legal requirement. So that's why the register must include complete details such as number of animal used, the species, age and gender of animal, source of procurement. So everything, the data should be present with the establishment, and at the time of inspection, the records will be checked by the nominee or CCSEA team, and it is mandatory to show these records. Now, Rule 7 talks about the approval of research protocols. So, research protocols of small animals up to phylogenetic scale of rodents and legomorpha are approved in the Institutional Animal Ethics Committee. So, this IAC will approve small animal research protocol. However, for large animals, the protocol is first reviewed and recommended by the IAC in the institute level, and it is then sent to CCSA for final approval, and final permission is granted during CCSA meeting. But there's an exception. Exception if blood withdrawal is 0.6 ml per kg body weight or less weekly from large animals for feeding trials, breeding studies, clinical diagnosis or thesis work may be approved directly by IAC, but this condition is only applicable to ICMR, ICR, veterinary institutes, agriculture university, and government funded institutes. Now rule 8. Hello, my voice is audible?
Yes, madam.
Okay. So, rule 8, we'll talk about rule 8. This rule focuses on ensuring that animals are kept in proper environment. Animal house shall be located in a quiet atmosphere, undisturbed by traffic, and the premises kept hygienic, clean, tidy, and the animal protected from drought and extreme of weather. Animal cages for small animals and stable for large animals shall be such that animals can live in comfortable and overcrowding is avoided. So basically it talks about the well-being of laboratory animals. There should not be any stress to animals. Overcrowding should be avoided, and the facility should be hygienic. So this rule says about the hygiene and the facility. Now, so these are some of the guidelines issued by CCSEA to ensure ethical and standardized practice in animal experimentation. So these cover every aspect of laboratory animal care, management, and research conducted in India. So these are some of the most important CCSEA guidelines. I'll just read them. Guidelines on regulation of scientific experiments on animals. Guidelines for laboratory animal facility 2015. Guidelines for poultry bird facility 2020. Guidelines for experimentation on fish 2021. Care and management of equine used in product of biologicals. Guidelines for reuse, rehabilitation of large animals post experimentation. Guidelines for constitution or reconstitution of IAEC. So now let's quickly take the look at guidelines of laboratory animal facilities. So the main objective of these guidelines is to ensure humane care and welfare of laboratory animals. At the same time, maintaining scientific quality and ethical standard in research. So this guidelines talks about procurement of animals, veterinary care facility designs. So animal must be procured from approved or registered breeders with known health and genetic status. Okay. Animals, it should not be there that you are taking animals from anywhere. No, you can take the animals only from the registered breeders, and the list of registered breeders is given in the website. You can go and check from there. So animals should always be procured from registered breeders. After arrival of the animals, they must undergo quarantine to prevent disease introduction. Okay, it's a must thing that after you bring the animals, you just quarantine the animal for some time so that disease could not spread to other animals. Then the veterinary care. The veterinarian plays a critical role in supervising animal health, diagnosing disease, guiding anesthesia and surgery, and advising IAC on ethical issues. So, role of veterinarian is very important in the animal house facility. The so the third is a facility design. A properly designed animal house facility must include a separate area for species segregation, quarantine, housing, and experimentation. Then surgical area, necropsy room, and postmortem care room should also be separate. Storage area for feed and bedding must also be separate to avoid contamination. It should not be there that there's one storage room and you're keeping feed and bedding material in the same room. No, it should be separate so that contamination could be avoided. Then moving forward, environment control is very important for laboratory animal facility. The temperature should be maintained between 18 to 29 degrees Celsius for small animals, with humidity around 30 to 70%. Proper ventilation should be there in the facility, with 12 to 15 air changes per hour is required. Light and noise must also be controlled, and emergency power backup should be available. Okay, so further, animal husbandry is the foundation for a good animal facility. So, cages should provide adequate space, ventilation, and freedom of movement. They must be escape proof and made up of durable material to prevent injury and cross infection. Then social housing should be provided for communal species, and environmental enrichment such as perches and ropes help animals to express natural behavior. So it is important, as I've already discussed, that the natural behavior of animals should not be restricted. They should be expressive. They should, what is their natural behavior, they should express it. So, animal must receive nutritionally adequate, uncontaminated food and continuous access to clean water, clean drinking water. Okay, it should be the drinking water should be cleaned. So, therefore, the facility must have RO facility, and bedding should be non-toxic, absorbent, and changed regularly to maintain hygiene. So, it's also important. So, sanitation and cleanliness. Sanitation is essential to prevent disease and maintain research reliability. Animal room and cage must be cleaned and disinfected regularly. Autoclaving and microbiological monitoring helps ensure effective sterilization. So, bedding should be non toxic, absorbent, and changed regularly to maintain hygiene of the laboratory animal facility. Now, waste should be removed frequently, with incineration being the preferred method for uh, waste disposal. Pest control program is must in the animal house facility. The establishments, they have contract with professional services for the pest control. So it is the required one of the required thing which is mandatory in the animal house facility. Then proper management includes training personnel, wearing protective equipments, and regular medical checkups and monitoring details like records of animal health, breeding, experimentation, and IEC approvals. So all the records should be there. Emergency and holiday care must also be ensured. Now, if we talk about transportation of animals, so transportation of animals should minimize stress and injury. Suitable containers should be there, proper animal density should be there inside the container, and provision of food and water during transit is very important. Then, if we talk about anesthesia and euthanasia, all painful procedures must be performed under appropriate anesthesia, and animal must be monitored until recovery. Until the animal get recovered, you should keep eye on the animal. Then euthanasia should be humane, quick, and painless. Special care is required for transgenic or knockout animals because of altered genes. Uh, and these animals must be maintained in controlled environment and not released into the world. Finally, laboratory animal ethics is centered to the guidelines. Researchers must minimize pain and distress, ensuring humane treatment at individual, institutional, and national level. Then moving forward to the CCSEA guidelines for poultry and birds facility. The objective is a bit similar to the laboratory animal facility guidelines. These guidelines ensures humane care, welfare, and scientific standardization of poultry used in research. So these guidelines apply to poultry like chicken, quail, turkey, duck, pigeon, and other economically important breeds used in medical, nutritional, behavioral, and breeding research. So the main objective is to improve poultry well-being while ensuring a reliable and quality research outcome. The poultry facility must be located away from the human habitation and separate from office and public areas. This helps reduce stress and contamination. Important functional areas should include quarantine and isolation rooms, experimental area, feed and bedding storage area, washing area, and waste disposal system should be there. The construction must include smooth disinfectant wall and floor, proper drainage system should be there, and the structure should be rodent proof, and restricted entry should be there to prevent disease transmission. So as the poultry is very sensitive to changes, environmental changes. So therefore, environmental control is very important in poultry facility. The facility must maintain 12 to 15 air changes per hour. Ammonia level should be below 25 ppm. Temperature, humidity, and light should be controlled according to the species and age. Housing system should use rust-free stainless steel cages with adequate space per bird. In deep litter system, bedding like wood shaving is used, and the depth should be 5 to 15 centimeter deep. Now, if we talk about the feed which is given to the poultry, it should be balanced and toxin free, must be provided, and the feed testing record should be maintained in the facility. The and also the birds must have access to clean drinking water. Now, if we talk about the facility, there should be a proper hygiene, regular cleaning, disinfectant, and pest control program are mandatory in the facility. The qualified veterinarian must supervise the facility, and daily health monitoring is required, and sick birds must be isolated from the facility so that the disease transmission is eliminated. Now, vaccination is important for birds because birds suffer from various, outbreaks and disease. So, vaccination program should be strict in the facility. Euthanasia, if we talk about euthanasia, it should be humane and should perform if necessary to prevent suffering. Means we should not, we should not euthanize the animals, if the animal condition is very bad, very poor, then only prefer euthanasia only to prevent, suffering. Else, if it is treatable, so then try to treat the animal. Proper record must be maintained, including SOP, health records, monitoring and post-mortem records, feed analysis, and training records. So record keeping is also important in poultry sheds, poultry facility. Then ethical responsibility, if we talk about ethical responsibility, so it is all the experiments required IAC approval, and bird welfare must always be prioritized. It should be the goal of researcher. Then in conclusion, this guideline ensures humane care, disease protection, disease prevention, ethical research practice, and high quality scientific outcomes. The next guideline is guidelines of CCSEA for rehabilitation reuse of large animals. So this guidelines was issued by CCSEA in 2020. The main objective is to regulate reuse, and ensure proper rehabilitation of large animal used in experimentation. The focus is on animal welfare, ethical responsibility, and reduction of suffering after experimentation. So, according to this guidelines, large animal includes all species above rodents in phylogenetic scales, like dog, cattle, sheep, cat, horse, monkey, and pigs. These all comes in large animal. Now, reuse means using the same animal again in another experiment after sufficient washout period. Okay, you cannot, you have to wait for reusing the animal after sufficient washout period. Then rehabilitation refers to long term aftercare. It ensures animals are not they are not suffering after experimentation. It's the responsibility of the institute to rehabilitate the animal. The aim is to provide a life distinctively different from laboratory house conditions. Now, reuse of large animal. Reuse is allowed only under strict supervision. No adverse effect from previous experiment. The veterinarian must certify that animal is healthy and fit. IAC must approve reuse carefully. Animal shows physiological stress or physical defects must not be reused. Only those animals which have been certified by which have been certified healthy by veterinarian should be reused. Otherwise, rehabilitate the animal. The principle of reduction should not increase the suffering of individual animals, and documentation must be preserved for 10 years for transparency and accountability. Okay. Then, dog receives special protection under these guidelines. Each reuse requires specific CCSEA approval. For dogs, maximum stay in laboratory animal house is limited to 3 years. A minimum washout period of 3 months to prevent is given to the dogs, and dogs used in toxicity studies cannot be bred, cannot be used for breeding. For those dogs, telemetry device cannot be reimplanted after removal. Once the device is removed, it cannot be reimplanted. So after completion of 3 years, dogs must be rehabilitated. Adoption by families is strongly encouraged after sterilization only. Then rehabilitation of large animals. Institutes are responsible for rehabilitation until natural death. If they cannot rehabilitate in-house, so institute must transfer the animals to registered animal welfare organization, and cost must be paid monthly in advance, and which should be increased annually by 10%. So here minimum daily rehabilitation cost is given for different species. For dog, it's 60. For cat, it's 40. Sheep, goat, 50 rupees. Cattle, 200. Horse, 200. For pony and mule, it's 100. Now, as I've already said that the cost should be increased by 10% annually. IAC and CCSE nominee must inspect the rehabilitation center must inspect the facility once every 6 months. Then euthanasia is permitted only in extreme cases and must be humane. And adoption is allowed for certain species, but cattle and their progeny cannot be given for adoption to the farmers. So this was all about the guidelines for reuse and rehabilitation. There are many more guidelines which are available in the website of CCSEA. So if you want to check, it will be available under acts and guidelines section. So you can go and check there. So That's all. In this presentation, I've tried to cover how like animal experimentation started in India and how CCSA was established under PCA Act to regulate animal experimentation. And also I've tried to explain certain guidelines for animal welfare and of laboratory animals. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Samiksha Saklani, ma'am, for that incredibly detailed and enlightening session on the regulatory framework from animal experimentation in India, role and function of CCSEA, understanding the establishment of laboratory and the regulatory oversight of animal breeding is fundamental for any researcher in our field. From registration renewal to ethical trading of laboratory animals, you have given us a very clear roadmap. For our participants, hold on to those questions. We will be conducting a comprehensive question and answer session at the end of both presentations to address all the doubts collectively. We will now move forward with our next part session by Dr. Richa Rotela ma'am. To introduce her, now I request Ms. Tayyaba Ali ma'am to perform the honors of welcoming and introducing her. Over to you, Tayyaba ma'am.
Hello, am I audible?
Hello, जी sir.
Yes, you are audible.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. I, Ms. Tayyaba Sabir Ali, Assistant Professor, IPAR Vardha. It's a distinct honor to introduce our guest speaker today, Dr. Richa Rotela, a distinguished expert in veterinary public health and epidemiology. Dr. Rotela earned her Master's of Veterinary Science from the prestigious G.B. Panch University of Agriculture and Technology. Her career spans clinical and regulatory leadership, having served as a veterinary doctor at the Uttarakhand Cooperative Dairy Federation Limited. She currently serves as a consultant for the CCSEA under the Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying. Today, she will share her expertise on the IAEC and online processes of CCSEA. With this brief introduction, I request Dr. Richa Rotela ma'am to proceed with the session. Hello, ma'am.
मैडम आवाज करता है.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
you
yes,
are
ma'am. Thank you,
audible.
ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. So my lecture is all about the Institutional Animal Ethics Committee and the online processes of CCSEA. So now I'll begin my presentation. Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Hello. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Yes, ma'am. You are audible.
So this lecture is all about the Institutional Animal Ethics Committee and online processes of CCSEA. So what is IAEC?
Excuse me,
The
ma'am.
Institutional Animal Ethics Committee is a body comprising of a group of people recognized and registered by CCSEA in an establishment at the time of registration of their animal house facility. Hello, am I audible?
Ma'am, you are audible, but could you please switch on your camera, please? Hello. अभी
Hello.
हाँ मैडम.
Screen तो on है. Yes, am I audible, sir? Okay, so what is IEC? The Institutional Animal Ethics Committee is basically a body comprising of people which are approved by the CCSEA, and this committee is formed at the time of registration of animal house facility. Now, the IAC of an establishment is constituted by CCSEA at the time of registration for a period of 5 years, and it is reconstituted at the time of renewal of registration for another 5 years period. Now, what is the composition of IAC? IAC is basically composed of internal IAC members, that is the members selected by the establishment from their establishment, and the CCSEA nominee, which are provided at the time of either the registration of the animal house facility or the renewal of registration. Now, the internal IAC members. IAC members from establishments include basically one biological scientist, two scientists from different biological discipline, one veterinarian, and one scientist in charge of animal house facility. These are basically designations, and the establishment need not create any post for the people for creating their internal IAC. Now, the chairperson of the committee and the member secretary would be nominated by the establishment from the above 5 members. However, if the establishment wants to propose its administrative head, who is from non-scientific background, as chairperson, then 6 members may be proposed. However, the chairperson will only be nominated as chairperson. Apart from the chairperson, these 5 members will be a part of their IAC. It is to be noted that the chairperson and the member secretary of an IAC must necessarily be the employees of the establishment registered with CCSEA due to the administrative reasons. Having a veterinarian in IAC is mandatory for ensuring the well-being of the animals. Now, the CCSEA nominees. They will be nominated by CCSA at the time of either registration or renewal of animal house facility. There are 4 nominees provided, that is the main nominee, link nominee, scientist from outside the institute, and the socially aware nominee. The link nominee, basically the main nominee chairs the chairperson chairs the IAC meeting, and the main nominee acts as the main from the CCSEA nominees. However, in absence or unavailability of the main nominee, link nominee shall substitute the main nominee, and when the main nominee conveys his unavailability in writing to the chairperson IC in advance. The link nominee must be invited once a year to update him/her about the activities of the IC, and A specialist may be co-opted while reviewing the special project using hazardous agents such as radioactive substance and deadly microorganisms. Now, as for the qualification of the IC members or nominees, they can either be the graduate from the veterinary sciences college, or the MSc Masters in Zoology and Animal Sciences or Animal Biotechnology, or the Master in Science and Master in Technology in Life Sciences, Biological Sciences, Biochemistry, Biotechnology, Biomedical Engineering with experience in animal handling and animal research, or M Pharma with experience in animal handling and animal research, or MD/MS with research experience in laboratory animal handling. These were the qualification for the IC members and nominees. However, the minimum qualification for a socially aware nominee should be at least graduate from any subject. Now, the upper age limit in case of IEC members and CCSEA nominees, it is 65 years. However, the CCSEA nominees who are already working in the IECs and are above 65 years of age will be allowed to continue till the end of their tenure in the present IECs. Now, what are the objectives of IEC? IEC must ensure that the experiments on animals are avoided wherever it is possible to do so. The experiments on larger animals are avoided when it is possible to achieve the same results by experiments on small laboratory animals like guinea pig, rat, mice, rabbit, etc. Every experiment shall be performed by or under the supervision of a person duly qualified in that behalf. IEC must ensure that the experiments are performed with due care and humanity. The experiments are not performed merely for the purpose of acquiring manual skills. IEC must also ensure the rationalized usage of 3 Rs, that is replacement, reduction, and refinement. Now, the replacement of animals using non-animal methods or any scientific method employing non-sentient material, which may replace use of conscious living vertebrates. For example, the computer-assisted learning modules, the in vitro cell line cultures, etc. In case of reduction, the number of animals which are used to obtain information of a given amount and precision. That is, if the same result can be obtained by using 6 number of animals instead of 10, we should go for the reduction of number of animals. In case of refinement, the refinement of any experimental design and methods to reduce pain and distress to animals, such as giving anesthesia to animals at the time of experimentation and such. The objective is also to make sure that the animals intended for the performance of experiments are properly taken care of before, during, and after experiments, and to maintain the records. Now, what are the functions of IEC? They are to work for achievements of the above mentioned objectives, to ensure ethical and methodical handling of animals during and after experiments, to review and approve all types of small animal experimentation protocols, to review and recommend the large animal protocols to CCSA. Now, in case of large animal protocols, basically the IEC will recommend all the protocols to CCSEA. However, in case of research protocols dealing with withdrawal of or below 0.6 ml per kg body weight of blood from large animals or weekly basis, for feeding trials, breeding experiments, and livestock management studies, which are conducted by the ICMR, ICR, veterinary and agricultural universities and government-funded institution handling large animals. This is the only exception where the IEC can approve the large animal protocols. And they need not send those protocols for approval to CCSEA. Now, the other functions are to monitor the research throughout the study. After completion of study, IEC shall obtain the periodic reports on research development. and they're also required to inspect the animal house facility, whether it is applicable or feasible to house the animals and whether it is in good condition, to ensure the compliance with all regulatory requirements, rules, guidelines, and laws. Now, what are the guidelines for the constitution and functioning of the Institutional Animal Ethics Committee? The duration of IEC is for a period of 5 years and it is coterminous with registration. The committee is required to be reconstituted at the time of renewal of registration. A member can be replaced for any action not appropriate with the responsibilities laid down in the guidelines deemed unfit for a member. A member can tender resignation from the committee with proper reason to do so. The minimum 6 members should be present in the IC meetings to complete the quorum. And the presence of main nominees, scientists from outside, and socially aware nominees mandatory in all IC meetings. Now, a minimum of 2 IC meetings must be conducted in a year, irrespective of the protocols or research going on in an establishment. All members should maintain absolute confidentiality of all discussions during the meeting and sign a confidentiality form. The conflict of interest should be declared by members of the IEC. IEC is required to formulate SOP for its working requirements and follow it in all the meetings. And the foreign nationals shall not be allowed as member of the IEC of any establishment. Now, the decision making and communicating the decisions. After convening the IEC meetings, how the decisions are communicated. The members will discuss all the related issues concerning the welfare of animals before arriving at a consensus decision. The decision will be made only in meetings where quorum is complete. That is, a minimum of 6 IC members with presence of main nominee, scientist from outside, and socially aware nominee. The IEC may take decision to accept, reject, or modify the proposals. Specific suggestions for modifications or reason for rejection should be communicated to the researcher. Only members of IEC can vote for the decision. That is, if the experts are invited for any suggestion, they may attend. However, they may offer the meeting their opinions. However, they will not sign the minutes and they won't influence in any way the making of decision. In case of conditional decisions, clear suggestions for revision and the procedure for having the application re-reviewed should be specified. Modified proposals may be reviewed by an expedited review through identified members. The decision will be communicated by the member secretary in writing. Now, the role of nominee. Nominee should be familiar with the CCSEA guidelines, the concept of 3 Rs, rehabilitation, reuse, and other animal welfare issues. The nominee attached to educational institution should have a thorough knowledge of syllabus prescribed by the university or college for a particular course. The nominee in research establishment should learn about the overall goal or mandate of the establishment and keep himself or herself updated with the current and past work done by the institution in animal studies and to be able to link the new studies proposed. Nominee must read the proposal attached with agenda thoroughly and come prepared to attend the IC meeting. For any clarifications on the protocols, methods, either they should be see more details with the investigators when the agenda is circulated or seek comments from CCSEA. The nominee should aim for humane and ethical issues related to experiments, avoidance of repetitions of animal studies, number of animals used, and the possible reduction without losing scientific conclusion. The nominee should visit the animal house at least once in a calendar year to look at the well-being and maintenance of animal and relevant record books. Nominee should also submit the annual inspection report within a month from the date of inspection. Now, the online processes of CCSEA. We'll also be discussing about what are the online processes. That is, CCSEA receives during and at the time of registration, after registration, what processes happens, and how the establishment can apply for all these requests. These basically are registration of Animal House Facility and constitution of IEC, the amendment of registration, the revision of IEC, change nominee, and renewal of registration. Now, for the registration of Animal House Facility, why do establishments needs to get registered with CCSA? As it is well stated that in terms of Rule 3 and 4 of Breeding of and Experiments on Animals, Control and Supervision Rules 1998, every establishment involved with handling of laboratory animals is required to register with CCSA. According to Rule 3A of Breeding and Experiments on Animals, Control and Supervision Rule 1998, no establishment shall carry on the business of breeding of animals or trade of animals for the purpose of experiments unless it is registered with CCSEA. Therefore, those establishments which wish to conduct the breeding of animals or trade of animals for the purpose of experiments needs to apply for registration under Sub-Rule B of Rule 3. And those establishments which wish to conduct the experiments on animals needs to get registered with Sub-Rule B of Rule 4. Now, what are the requisite documents of registration? The first document that is required for the registration is the blueprint or layout plan of the Animal House Facility, which needs to be duly signed by the head of the establishment and the architect with date. Then the second document which is required is the minutes of IAC meeting of 5 internal IAC members, wherein the recommendation of CCSEA registration has been approved by the IAC. It is clearly mentioned that the minutes of internal IAC meeting must contain the recommendation for CCSEA registration. That is, the 5 IAC members, internal IAC members, must have clearly recommended for CCSEA registration, and the same must be minutized in the minutes. Then the third document is the approval letter from the government or autonomous council. For example, AICT, PCI, MCI, or company registration certificate. Now, the approval letter is very specific for specific establishments, like in case of pharmacy colleges, they need to upload the PCI approval letter. In case of medical colleges, they need to upload the MCI letter from the MCI. In case of technology and establishment, they need to upload the AICT approval letter. In case of the commercial establishments which are registered with for doing commercial activity, needs to upload the company registration certificate. And in case of any autonomous body, they might or any universities, they are basically formed under the act, so they can upload the gazette notification or their specific acts. The fourth document is the biodata and consent of 5 internal IEC members. The format of biodata is available on the website of CCSA, and see, these documents are basically uploaded in the online Form A. There is a Form A which needs to be filled at the time of registration, and it is available online. And these 4 documents are supposed to be uploaded while filling Form A. After the complete, all the documents and all the details are filled in Form A, when the establishment will click on the submit button to forward the request, the request will be directed to the payment gateway, and there the establishment will be able to make payment of according to the purposes selected. So basically, the purposes for which the establishment can apply are research for education, research for commercial, breeding for in-house use, breeding for the purpose of trade, and the production of hyperimmune plasma or serum. Now, some establishment gets confused as to what purpose they need to select. In those cases, in case of research, the establishment that are government funded, basically they are government bodies like R&D research and development establishments. Only they get registered for research purpose because they are not providing any degree to establishment, or they are not conducting any commercial activity, or so only the research and development establishment like DRDO and such gets registered for research purpose. Now, for the purpose of research for education, the research for education purpose is basically for those establishments which provide the degree to the students, like pharmacy colleges, veterinary colleges, medical colleges. So those establishments get registered for research for education purpose. For research for commercial purpose, the establishments which conduct the commercial activity like vaccine production, or they conduct any training program, and the revenue is generated, those establishment get registered for, and the private companies basically get registered for research for commercial purpose. Now, in case of breeding for in-house use, when the establishment needs to get registered for breeding for in-house use is when they are conducting research in their facility and they also wish to breed the animals for their usage. Then they need to apply for breeding for in-house use along with the other purpose. That is, it can be either research for education, and research for commercial purpose. Then they can apply for breeding for in-house use. Now, breeding for purpose of trade, if the establishment wishes to breed the animals and they intend to supply those animals to the other establishments which will be conducting the experiments, then they need to get registered with breeding for purpose of trade of animals. In case of production of hyperimmune plasma, basically the large animals like equine facilities which deal with the anti snake venom production or such gets registered for that purpose. Now, after these all these purposes, the establishment needs to select very carefully while applying for registration, because as the fees is different for different purpose, and the establishment may select any purpose they want, but the fees will be added as per their selection. That is, it is research for research, it is 10,000 for both small and large animal species. It is 10,000 for both for research for education and research for commercial purpose. However, it is in case of breeding for in-house use, in case of small, it is 15, and for large, it is 25. And for breeding for purpose of trade, it is both 25 for both the small and large animal species. Now, if suppose the establishment has selected research for education purpose in both small and large animals, so the fees will come out to be 10 plus 10, that is 20,000. And if they will select more purposes, the fees will add accordingly. So be careful while applying for registration. Select your purposes carefully. Now, after getting registered with CCSEA, after the submission of Form A, the CCSEA will scrutinize the documents, we will check whether all the documents are as per CCSEA guidelines or not. If all the documents are as per order, we will nominate for inspection of the animal house facility of the establishment. And after the nominee has inspected the facility and they have submitted the inspection report, we will register the facility or reject the facility, or will convey the suggestions for improvement on the basis of what is mentioned in the inspection report. Now, once the facility is registered with CCSEA, and if they wish to change the name of their facility, they can apply for amendment of registration. And if the establishment also wishes to change the address of facility, they can apply for address of amendment in address of animal house facility. And suppose the establishment is registered for research for education purpose, and now it also wish to add the breeding for in-house use as its purpose, so they can apply for amendment in purpose of registration. And if suppose the establishment is registered only for small animal house facility and wish to also house or conduct experiments on large animals, they need to apply for amendment in type of animal house facility. Now, what are the documents required for these particular amendments? In case of, if the establishment wish to change the name of the establishment, the documents that are required are the minutes of IAC meeting and the approval letter. However, in the minutes of IAC meeting, the mention of name change should be there. That is, the name previously, what was the name, has been changed to the new name, and it has been recommended by the IAC members. And in the approval letter, for example, as the approval letter for pharmacy colleges is PCI, so they need to upload the approval letter from PCI, wherein the name change is clearly mentioned. No fees will be charged for the amendment in name. And in case of address of animal house facility, the documents that are required to be uploaded are minutes of IEC meeting, the same where the address change is clearly mentioned and approved by the IEC members, and the blueprint of the new facility. The fees again will not be charged for the address. However, after the documents are verified, inspection will be ordered for the verification and checking of the new facility. For the purpose of registration, again, the minutes and blueprint are the documents, requisite documents which need to be uploaded. And in the type of animal house facility as well, the minutes and blueprint are need to be uploaded. See, in case of name and address, no fees is required. In case of purpose and type, the fees will be charged as per the selected purposes. That is, if you wish to add BI in small animals, 15,000 fees will be there. Or you also wish to add research for commercial purpose, it will be 15 plus 10. So in name, no fees is required. The amendment in name will be done on the basis of perusing the documents. However, in case of amendment, no fees is required at the time of submitting the request. However, inspection will be conducted by the nominee. In case of purpose and type, fees will be added as per the selected purposes, and the inspection will also be conducted by the nominee. Now, after the amendment is done, in case after the registration, in case the establishment wishes or desires to replace any internal IC member, they are required to send the request for revision. That is in the due course of 5 years till the validity of registration is there. Establishment can change any, IC members with due reason. Reason should be mentioned clearly. Now, the requisite documents for revision are the biodata and consent letter of proposed IC members and the minutes of IC meeting in which the proposal for revision of IC has been discussed and recommended by IC. Now, the reason for the revision may vary. That is, it either can be due to the administrative reasons, that is, the establishment wishes to shuffle the IEC and they wish to give or grant the, they wish to grant the opportunity to all the other members as well. They can then also they can revise the IEC. And in case the IC member has superannuated or retired from the establishment, then also they can apply for revision of IC. In case the IC members have transferred to some other state or establishment, then also they can apply for revision of IC. Now, after the revision of IC, that is revision of IC is basically for change in internal IC members. Now, in case of change of nominee, that is if you wish to, the establishment wish to change the CCSEA nominee. If the establishment desires to replace the nominee nominated by CCSEA, they are required to send the request for change nominee. And the requisite documents for change nominee are minutes of IC meeting in which the proposal for change in nominee has been discussed and recommended by the IEC, and the reason for change of CCSEA nominee. I mean, why the establishment wish to change the nominee? It should be clearly mentioned. After the change of nominee, the renewal of registration and reconstitution of IEC, the validity of registration is for 5 years, and after 5 years, as the validity is going to expires in due course, the establishment can apply 40 days prior to the expiry of validity of registration. NIC must be reconstituted at the time of renewal of registration. That is, the CCSEA nominees will be changed, and if the establishment is also, they also want to replace their internal IC, they can change them as well. And in case of renewal of registration, the fee for if the renewal request is sent prior to the expiry of validity of registration, that is, if suppose the validity is going to expire tomorrow, if suppose validity is going to expire tomorrow of any establishment and the establishment applies today, no penalty will be applied, and the fees for renewal is 2,500 per purpose. That is, if establishment is registered for research for education, so fees will be only 2,500. However, if the establishment is also registered for other purposes like RC, BI, BT, etc., the fees will be 2,500 plus 2,500 according to as many purposes there are present. However, if the establishment, suppose tomorrow is the expiry date of the validity of registration, the establishment applies day after tomorrow, the fees they will have to pay the registration fee as their penalty fee. That is, it will be like 10,000 for one purpose for research for education research or research for commercial in small and large, and 15 plus 15 for BI, breeding for in-house use for small animals, and so on. So basically, it is advised that the establishment apply for renewal of registration 40 days prior to the expiry of their validity. Now, that was all for online processes of CCSEA. As scientists and students carrying out research on animals, we are indebted to those animals which cooperate and make our research fruitful. Let's take care of them and handle them with respect, sensitiveness, and responsibility. Now, what are the requisite documents of renewal and reconstitution of IEC? The biodata with consent of the 5 IEC members, the minutes of IEC meeting for the last 5 years, and the annual inspection report of last 5 years, and the annual statement of large animal use in case the establishment is registered with large animals. And that was all for my presentation. Thank you. Hello, am I audible?
Yes. Yes, ma'am, you are audible. So we will now open the floor for question and answer session. If you have any doubts, you can ask the question or please post them in the chat or raise your virtual hand. Hello. For participants, the floor is open.
Hello, madam.
For question
Hello,
and
madam.
answer session.
Yeah. Hello,
Yes.
madam.
Yes, yes, sir.
Sir, we are the State Agriculture University and we have the small unit of livestock, that is cattle, buffalo, sheep, goat.
Yes, sir.
And particularly as in the Agriculture University, our department, that is Animal Husbandry and Dairy Science, regarding the animal science, we have to conduct the research programs, particularly regarding the management and nutrition. For this purpose, it is
Yes, sir.
essential to registered with the Animal Ethics Committee or
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You need to get registered, sir.
okay.
Hello.
Okay, madam. Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello, anyone? Or
Hello.
Hello. Yes, ma'am.
Hello. Hello, ma'am. Am I
Hello,
audible?
sir from State Agriculture University. Was there anything to your question?
No
Hello.
question.
Okay.
One question.
Uh,
Hello.
Hello. Yes, sir.
Hello, ma'am. First of all, thank you for the insightful lecture given by you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. My doubt is that whether CCSEA is also organizing any refresher programs for the already registered nominees.
It is not planned as of now, sir, but it was recommended to us.
Yeah,
So we will
ma'am.
think about it in due course of time. But as of now, we are not planning any such program in coming time.
Yeah.
We will definitely invite you. Do not worry, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Please, it is a humble request from my side also because it is really necessary to undertake such a types of the refresher training because already I
Yes,
am
sir.
the nominee and I feel it necessary that there should be some refresher training. So it is
Yes,
a
sir.
request
We'll
from my
definitely
side
give.
also, sir. Ma'am.
Oh, sure, sir.
Yeah. Thank you.
Welcome, sir. Are there any more questions from anyone? Pardon? Hello?
Hello. Madam, there were some questions in chat box.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Rahul Chanshetty was asking,
Okay.
what is normal washout period for animal after experiments?
What is short period animals after experiments? So it depends for reuse purpose, right? It depends upon what you are, using, what chemicals, what experiments you are using those animals in. It depends upon the species as well as on the product that has been experimented upon.
Thank you, madam. Hopefully the question is
Welcome, sir.
answered. If anyone is interested, then they can post their question in chat box also, or they can ask directly.
Any more questions from the audience?
Hello?
hello. I think there are no further doubts to the participants. So let me conclude the session. So thank you, Dr. Richa Rotela, ma'am, for that incredibly insightful presentation. You have provided us with a comprehensive understanding of the IAEC and the online processes of CCSEA and the vital role the CCSEA plays in upholding ethical standards. Dr. Rotela has walked us through the critical components that every researcher and institution must navigate. She discussed on IAEC and online processes of CCSEA through registration and inspection by streamlining the registration of establishments and the submission of form through a digital portal, and the 3R principle, that is replacement, reduction and refinement. Ultimately, mastering these online documentation and ethical review processes is not just a regulatory requirement, It is a commitment to maintaining the highest global standards of scientific integrity. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you once again.
Thank you, everyone.
So, as a reminder, this concludes our first day. We will reconvene tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. sharp to continue our session. I extend my sincere thanks to all the participants for their kind listening. Thank you, one and all.
I request all the participants to start.
Hello. All the participants are requested to join the session at 11:30 a.m. sharp tomorrow.